I'm here in the YVC Clay Studio to show you some of our coil-built pieces. Now, these are some pretty big pieces. You can see that they, some of them get quite tall. This one's, coming up to 2 feet. You probably won't be able to make stuff this large and transport it into the studio, but there are still some things I can show you in these examples that are relevant to your work. So let's start with these ones that have visible coils in the front here. You can tell that there is some Jomon inspiration, right? That style of work is inspired by Jomon because of these visible coils. Now this one and this, well, all three of these actually have these shapes at the top that aren't even, right? They have holes, they're irregular. This one has kind of a handle, a little pitchfork thing happening here, kind of flame-ish inspired. This one has a whole side that is taller than the other, and then these little balls of clay. You can also tell that the glaze choices these artists have made have been inspired by trying to capture all of those different movements and irregularities in the clay. So they've left their coils visible, which means they scored and slipped their coils in place. And then in places, they've done something other than coils. They've done balls with coils that wiggle over them, zigzags, bricks here. And of course the Jomon pottery, if you looked into it much, you'll see that they also would include just flat sections where they rolled a texture onto it. This one on the back, we can see some of that stuff as well. And this one has holes and gaps and things like that. The inside even has this kind of ridge thing happening here. So those are visible coils. And I've got one more with mostly or entirely visible coils to show you. This is an avocado. And one of the things that's interesting is this piece was done on its side. And you can see the coils weren't built out from the piece. This pit was built separately and then attached onto the front of the avocado later with scoring and slipping. Now I've got another piece over here that has visible coils, and you might notice something in common between this one and the piece made with the avocado, and that is that the body of this piece was built sideways. So it was built, you can see the separate coils. These are kind of flattened coils, slabs functioning as coils. And then after those were all together, it was tipped on its side. And then of course the handle and the spout were added. But you can see how these coils, if you try to build them sideways, they wouldn't work. They have to be built on their end and then flipped over. But that's something that you can do. Now, the rest of these have either smoothed coils or partly smoothed coils. This one back here, you can see the different edges of coils. You can see how the glaze kind of highlights some of those different edges, or we can see a difference in the glaze. But this person partly smoothed them, and so the result is fairly smooth. This person over here smoothed them more. They're harder to see those individual lines until she got to the top where she decided to leave those coils visible. And so we see this project that they were working on, they had to create an asymmetrical form. And you can see that the coils do that really well. They leave these bumps and wiggles. And then we have this beautiful contrast top to bottom. This piece is also fairly light because she used pretty thin coils. Now over here, this big one in the back, that I can't fit all in the camera. This one's another one that has these concave shapes. But look how nicely she finished this shape with this this neck. So we have this wiggly, oblong, asymmetrical form, and the ending is something different, which is a nice way to finish it off. This one too has an ending that is different than the rest of the form. And this one, she's really exaggerated how much that goes in, how asymmetrical that is. And both of these are smoothed. They have different surface treatments for glaze. This one has glaze and this one doesn't. It's a pit or a horsehair raku firing process. But both of them have smoothed it to some extent with things like ribs. And I think that's the whole batch that I have out here. I don't have any sets in the room right now, but one of the things you might consider in your sets is having pieces that have all this extravagant texture happening, and then pieces that maybe have some areas that are a little bit smoother and simpler.